In Cairo, the protests are spilling out beyond Tahrir Square today. More than 2,000 protesters blocked off Parliament today and called for it to be dissolved. And labor strikes have started throughout the country. Here we go. That's exactly what I said last night. Let's watch. What the protesters could do is you go sit in one of those rich guys' factories for a week and don't let him run that factory. All of a sudden, he's not going to be too happy about that. And all of a sudden, he's going to be motivated to say, I got to change this one way or another. Glad to see the protesters are listening to MSNBC at 6 p.m. No, of course, it was a smart idea. That's why they did it. And I wish other people would listen to my advice as well. Look, I've been telling this administration, you've got to be on the side of the protesters. And it turns out it's an excellent argument because, how do you like me for modesty? I've made an excellent argument. No, but seriously, look, the protesters, if they succeed, they're going to deal a huge blow to Al-Qaeda. Now, why? Let me explain. The protesters started out as young guys who were gathering on the internet. Wael Ghonim, who we told you about last night, he created a Facebook page, and it was called We Are All Khalid Saeed. Now, Khalid Saeed was a young businessman, and he was allegedly beaten to death by the Egyptian police. And that really riled up everybody in Egypt, and it was something that they rallied around, quite literally in this case. And that Facebook page wound up getting over 400,000 followers to join the original protest on January 25th. Now, when the protest started, it was the young people, it was the people who met on Facebook, etc. Muslim Brotherhood was not part of the original protest. In fact, it took 3 days for them to announce their support for the protest, basically saying, oh, that's working? Oh, wow, that's amazing. All right, yeah, we're in. So the people telling you that the Muslim Brotherhood are the ones that are doing these protests and the one secret force behind it, it's simply not true. Protesters do not equal the Muslim Brotherhood. Now the Muslim Brotherhood is joined on a little late to the protest, but they are not the ones who started it. And other people tell you in this country, oh, Muslim Brotherhood, they're with the Al-Qaeda people and they're with the terrorists, etc. Not true. Muslim Brotherhood does not equal Al-Qaeda. In fact, did you know that the Muslim Brotherhood kicked out Ayman al-Zawahiri? That's the second guy in charge of Al-Qaeda, because he wouldn't agree to nonviolence. They wanted to do the nonviolent route. Al-Qaeda wanted to do the violent route. So they disagreed and split apart. So the people telling you, oh, it's the same thing as Al-Qaeda and the people that attacked us, it's simply not true. Now, why would Al-Qaeda be weakened by the protests? Because the protests are nonviolent. They say, hey, we're going to go for democracy here. And if they succeed, well, then the people of Egypt and the people of the Middle East will see, hey, nonviolence can work. And Al-Qaeda hates that. Al-Qaeda's whole program is violence. And you think Al-Qaeda wants democracy? They don't want democracy. But now if the protests fail, Al-Qaeda comes around and goes, oh, you see that? I told you nonviolence wasn't going to work. I told you America wasn't going to support you. I told you they were going to support the dictator. Now the only way to do it is violence, the Al-Qaeda way. That's what they'll say if the protests don't work. Now, a perfect example of that is this. It's a screenshot of a high-level Al-Qaeda web forum urging Egyptians to leave Tahrir Square, establish a new Al-Qaeda branch in Egypt, and wage violent jihad against Mubarak. Get it? They want the protesters to leave the protest. They don't like what's happening in the protests. They want to go the route of violence, and the protesters disagree. How much clearer could it be? We've got to be on the side of the protesters, and not just for their sake, not for the sake of Egypt and for the sake of the Middle East, but also for our sake, because we don't want to strengthen Al-Qaeda. We want to make it weaker. Now, with me is NBC terrorism analyst Evan Coleman. Evan, first of all, let's talk about the Muslim Brotherhood and their relationship to these protests. Sure. Now, is it true that they're not the ones who started it?
Yeah, they are not the ones who started these protests. They are involved in it, but that makes perfect sense. They are the major opposition group in Egypt. They have been involved in political protests before. They are one segment of the protests going on right now. They're not the leaders of it.
All right, now, and again, here in this country, there's this vision of like, oh my God, Muslim Brotherhood, it's the boogeyman. Is it true that they have gone down the road of nonviolence, at least what they claim, right, and that they had a rift with Zawahiri?
Yeah, look, in Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood is about as far away from Al-Qaeda as you can imagine. These two groups are literally each day shoot back and forth verbal volleys at each other, calling each other illegitimate. The Muslim Brotherhood has come out very frequently saying that Al-Qaeda is not what we want to do. We're against their agenda. And Al-Qaeda has turned around and said, you guys are sellouts. You're traitors to the cause. We don't believe in you anymore. So look, do the Muslim Brotherhood support armed groups in the Middle East? Yes, they do, like Hamas. Does the Muslim Brotherhood share the exact same foreign policy as the United States? No, it does not. Is it Al-Qaeda? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
All right, so let's talk about Al-Qaeda. It's curious, they have not made a statement so far on this. Is that correct?
The very first statement came out today, and it wasn't from Al-Qaeda Central. It was from Al-Qaeda in Iraq, and it was very bland. They did say, yes, we support activities against Hosni Mubarak, but what they also said is these protests are infected with the disease of secularism, with infidel democracy, suggesting that, look, only violence will remove these regimes. These protests, it's infected with democracy, which is not our agenda.
Is it also possible that Al-Qaeda is not making a statement on the central Al-Qaeda, basically based in Pakistan, because they're on the run?
Look, right now, Al-Qaeda in Central, Al-Qaeda in Pakistan, if they want to issue a statement about what's going on in the world, they can issue it within days. They can get it out immediately. The only reason that they would be waiting right now is if it's not in their benefit. And there's good reason to believe right now that Al-Qaeda is looking at this and saying, look, why would we stick our foot in our mouth? We don't know what's going to happen. Let's see what plays out over the next few days, and then we can weigh in. Because, look, if something terribly violent ends up happening in Egypt, Al-Qaeda can come along and say, we told you so. We told you that protest rallies, that democratic protest rallies would never remove this regime. The only path was violence. So it's the I told you so argument, and that's probably why Al-Qaeda is waiting right now and hedging its bets.
And, I also see reports, though, that they're in trouble in northern Pakistan, that they might be having trouble getting out tapes. Is there any truth to that?
They're definitely having problems, but it's not communications. The problems that they're having are financial. When it comes to issuing videotapes or audio tapes, Al-Qaeda can issue videotapes or audio tapes from its senior leaders almost 3 or 4 days after events occur. So if Al-Qaeda really wanted to say something about what's going on right now in Egypt, they've had many, many days to weigh in. They haven't. This is not the product of a lack of opportunities to communicate. It's a deliberate decision.
So, look, as American administration and American officials, Republican or Democrat, look at this, do they see the same thing we do? I mean, do they think like, oh my God, if we're on the side of the dictator, we're kind of proving Al-Qaeda's case, aren't we?
Well, I mean, look, I hate to say it like this, but if you look at some Al-Qaeda propaganda films, especially the beginning ones, the ones that first came out right around the time of 9/11, half of those films are about the regime of Hosni Mubarak. Half of Al-Qaeda's senior leadership, over half, are Egyptians, are dissidents opposed to Hosni Mubarak. Now, if all of a sudden, if the Mubarak regime was to change overnight, and we had a democratic government in Egypt that maybe not 100% in love with the United States, but one that's peaceful and willing to accept stability in the region, would that do damage to Al-Qaeda? 100%. Of course it would. Of course it would. It would remove their cause, their raison d'etre. It would remove their reason for existence.
It would prove them completely wrong, right? And it's not whether that government agrees with us or disagrees with us in the short term or in the midterm. It's that they agree with our philosophy. They agree with our system of government. There couldn't be a better case to be made against Al-Qaeda, right?
Yeah, and we have to be behind democracy. We have to be promoting democratic values, because otherwise we are giving Al-Qaeda the perfect opportunity to turn around and say, look, we told you, they're liars. They're not interested in democracy. They're just interested in their own personal gains. And that's what we have to be very careful about right now. We don't want to turn Egyptians against us the same way that Iraqis were turned against us because we invaded there in 2003. We want Egyptians to understand that we are in support of their democratic principles and their right to protest, because they do have a right to protest.
Right. Evan Coleman, great reporting. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it.